The following may contain offensive language, adult humor, and or content that some viewers may find offensive. The views and opinions expressed by any one speaker does not explicitly or necessarily reflect or represent those of Mark Radulich or W2M Network. Please listen with caution, or don't listen at all.
What? No theme song? No. Dorian, I think you got the wrong message.
How did that happen that fast?
Star Trek is in this thing. I figured it made sense.
Jeez. Seriously, how did you change that so quickly? That is a costume unreal. Change. That was
unreal.
That was scary.
It's been down on my arms the entire time that we were talking.
Much respect.
So I was like, wait for it. We're going to do the disclaimer and go.
Wow.
There are actors on Broadway that would be very impressed.
Comes from being a backstage kid all these years.
Man, oh man.
Okay, so, this is off to one heck of a start. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to a very different attempt here on StreamYard because we are talking source material. We are talking Gargoyles, specifically here in Manhattan. I'm going to throw this over to our host, the man who's in charge of this and who knows way more about comics than I ever will, Mr. Jesse Starcher.
My goodness. Yeah, wow. This first ever recorded on StreamYard event for source material. This is going to be a lot of fun here. So, it was a while back. I think you threw this at me where we were talking about something to talk. We got how many trades do we have on a list that you and I are supposed to be talking about here pretty soon? But we finally get to one.
Let's see here. I got the you know what? Okay, so Spider-Punk is definitely still on there. And hang on a second. I'd like to thank your friend Nate for bringing this to my attention. Have you talked about this?
Cereal. I saw this on, I think he shared it, I believe, or maybe you did. I can't remember, but
he did. He shared it. I was inspired. I bought it. I am not joking. This is one of the funniest freaking graphic novels I have ever read. But I also love corny crossovers like that. Okay, this is literally the cereal monsters. Count Chocula, Frankenberry, Booberry, reimagined as classic Gothic Universal style monsters, fighting against the evil General Post.
Oh wow! That does not surprise me that that would be something that he would share.
It's hilarious, and we have got to put. I went to the doctors yesterday. I took this with me because I told myself I'm not going to be on my cell phone in the waiting room because doctors' offices make me nervous. And I've read that even just using your smartphone, even if you're not looking at stuff that on Facebook or whatever, even if you're just using it to play games or whatever, it can still stress you out. Something about holding onto your smartphone raises your blood pressure. So I was like, okay, I'm going to bring a book. So I brought this. I am laughing hysterically in the waiting room and scaring the crap out of the other patients while I'm reading this.
That's great. Well, yeah, we're going to be talking Gargoyles tonight. So this is the first one on our list that we're finally getting into. And you threw this at me. And then we were, what was it, a couple weeks ago, maybe a little bit longer, we were talking about X-Men 97. And on that show was one Dorian Prince. Yes, sir. You were able to, did I say Prince or Price?
Well, you said Prince, but it is Price.
See, I knew a Dorian
you
Prince.
Put your head down, so I was like, I think I heard Prince.
I did that on purpose, believe it or not, because I was like, I don't remember his last name.
You do not correct the host. The host is always right. And yeah, we just follow
Price.
Jesse, do not give that man a bigger ego, okay? He doesn't need it.
I'm sitting there going, it's not Vincent Prince. It's Vincent Price. That's Dorian Price. I knew this, and I apologize, sir. Dorian Price was there on X-Men 97 expressing his love of Gambit. But then, after the show ended, he expressed his love of Gargoyles. And he's like, hey, interested in hopping on, playing and talking Gargoyles tonight with us, and you said for sure. So, Dorian, welcome to Source Material. This is your first appearance, and I appreciate it, sir, for coming on here.
Absolutely. I hope I don't screw it up too much so I can come back.
Yeah, I don't think you could do much to get yourself booted off Source Material. Trust me, people have tried. I think
much to get you booted off the Rattlich and Broadcasting Network in general.
Well, if Yoga Mom hasn't pulled it off yet, no one can. That's a shout out to you, Robert, if you're listening.
I want to real quick, Dorian, just throw it to you. You know, since this is your first time being on the show, we talk comics here on the Source Material all the time, comic related stuff. Can you kind of just give me an idea of your like first interaction with comics? Whatever drew you to picking up a comic in the first place and sticking with them, maybe?
Well, I'll try to keep this short, and obviously as we talk about it, I'll be able to get into a little bit more history of it. I was raised on Batman the Animated Series, which the animated show Gargoyles was kind of Disney's answer to, well, crap, we gotta have to step up our game here. But being raised very strict Southern Baptist, a lot of things were quote unquote the devil. And Gargoyles was part of that. However, Batman for some reason got a pass. So I remember the first comic book I ever owned or ever got, bought for me was a Batman black and white. I don't know when it had come out. It might have been before my time in like the very early 90s and stuff like that. But I remember getting it in another one, and I read it, and I just slowly but surely, especially after becoming a filmmaker, I was like, these are storyboards. These are just basically storyboards that have more dialogue put to them. So Batman was really my introduction to it, and then I spread out from there. I've made the joke on the Rattlich podcast before about how, like, where most kids had dirty magazines under their bed, I had like comic books and movies that it was like, hey motherfucker, I got some gargoyles. If you want it, I got SpongeBob, motherfucker. Becoming this weird ass dealer. So comic books became a huge thing for me, a good escape when it was something silent you could do in the background that that wasn't movies, but they would become movies as I was continuing to grow up. So that's the short version of that question.
Yeah, that's interesting. I was not as strict parents, I could tell you that much. My parents weren't as strict when it came to what's the devil, what's not. I mean, I couldn't play a role-playing game upstairs at the kitchen table without getting some kind of side eye from my stepdad as like, oh my gosh, you guys worshiping the devil tonight. But it was more in a joking manner. I'm sure his parents were probably a little more strict on him, and he just felt like giving us a hard time and needling us. But there was probably some truth behind that too, or at least he had some genuine feelings about it. So, but yeah, it's funny how things get stigmatized like that, and it sucks too, because comic books are, they're a wonderful medium to see just about anything can happen in. You're not going to get that extra season of that show that you love because the TV, your TV networks canceled it. Comics can help you out with that every once in a while, and that's kind of what we get a little bit here. Is we get the continuing story of some people's favorite animated characters in the Gargoyles. So I want to start off just real quick about my history with the Gargoyles, which is going to be real quick because it's about nothing. There's nothing there. When you pitched this, Alexis, I was like, I'm not a Gargoyle fan, but me, I'll read anything. You guys can throw anything at me. I'll read it. I'll let you know what I think about it. But I knew the Gargoyles. I knew who they were. I knew they were on, it was Fox, right? It was Fox Television, correct? Or is it CW?
Disney.
Oh, okay. So I feel like for some reason I was pulling that, probably pairing it with the Disney.
Yeah, this was part of the Disney afternoon.
Yeah.
So
there you go.
This was one of their original shows. This was one of it wasn't like one of the first ones that debuted, but it didn't come near the end. So I'd say it was about midway through the programming that they started with this show, and yeah, it was quite a departure. The Disney afternoon before this consisted of the Gummy Bears, DuckTales, Tailspin, and Darkwing Duck.
There you go. Now there's my animation hour right there for just I can remember Chippendale's Rescue Rangers, Tailspin, things like that. So these guys came.
Chip and Dale, that too. Yeah, I completely forgot about Chip and Dale.
Right. So the Gargoyles came after a little ways after that. And this is 94 when it first aired, right? So I'm kind of also outside of being able to watch that too easily. So there you go. I mean, I've had no history with this other than knowing the fact that they actually existed. I can't say that I actually even watched any episodes. And I'll be talking about with you guys tonight when we read this comic. And I'd love to get your thoughts on the art style compared to the episodes themselves, because I have no basis other than maybe what I've seen on a commercial. So, but Alexis, Gargoyles, please, what's your history?
Like I said, this was part of the Disney Afternoon, 94. So I would have been around 9 or 10. So Disney Afternoon was right up my alley. Came home from school. The tradition was came home from school, got a snack, and immediately turned on the TV. My dad was still at work. My mom worked the morning show at a radio station, so she would be asleep in the afternoon. She'd wake up when my dad came home, and then we'd have dinner. So I was just kind of left to fend for myself for a few hours. So yeah, always put on Disney Afternoon. Gargoyles, I would say, probably has had the biggest impact on me as far as animation, next to only Batman the Animated Series. This was such a departure from what Disney was known for. Greg Weisman, the creator, had openly said he wanted to he approached Disney, said he wanted to do a darker series, something that had never been done before, something that could actually compete for the audiences of Batman the Animated Series. It was clear that they were looking to go for the same demographic, the same target. It was so different. It was so much fun, so beautiful. I loved it. I loved the use of sci-fi and sorcery. I loved the way they incorporated various mythologies. One episode they could be dealing with stories about King Arthur. Another one, they're fighting King Oberon and Queen Titania from Shakespeare. There's one episode where they go to Egypt and they're literally dealing with the gods of ancient Egypt. There's one episode where they come across this land populated explicitly by mythical creatures, where the human who's with them, Melissa, is the outcast instead of the gargoyles being the outcasts. It was just so much fun. You never knew what to expect. They gave really compelling character development for each of these characters. I mean, they started off pretty simple. You have Broadway, he's the fat one. You have Lexington, he's the nerdy one. You have Hudson, he's the old one. But they all had incredible story arcs, and you learn so much about them, and you grow with them. And it's fascinating.
I should be Hudson as well. Yes, because it's old and dirty, just like me.
No quoting Doug Walker.
Oh, come on. He needs all the help he can get.
Fair enough. But yeah, he did do a review about it. And even he mentioned it's like, yeah, he watched this like crazy when he was a kid. I loved it. I loved watching this. It took forever. It never got a proper DVD release here in the States. Yeah. But it got on Disney Plus, and I was thrilled. Like, yes, I get to watch this. And I loved it. Loved watching all of it. Oh, except for the third season, but we'll get into that a little bit.
I've heard that's a little bit controversial.
Just a touch. And a lot of people, myself included, it's one of those shows that sadly got canceled before it had a proper wrap up. It got cut after the third season. Third season was handled completely differently, and it got cut. So it never had a proper ending, but this show had such a fan following, so much devotion. We kept, Weisman would go to Comic-Cons and he'd get constant requests by fans like, when are we going to see more gargoyles? It's like, yes, we know you want more gargoyles. Settle down. And he's been dying to do this. I know for a fact that there has been talks of a gargoyle movie for ages. I know Jordan Peele has said over and over again he wants to direct it, and I would be fine with that. Easily. But then, Weisman brought out the Gargoyles comic book that he got to write. So it wasn't just, a continuation. It was a continuation in the hands of the creator.
That's
So
right.
we were all, it's like, we were like, this isn't just some fan theory or anything that's not going to be canon later. This isn't a Star Wars extended universe kind of thing. No, this is what happens to the characters. So could not wait to start reading this book. I remember when I got the release date, I went to my comic book shop. I went to Bebop Comics and I said, when this comes out, you are to get me the issue, because they will put reserves on it when they release it. It's like, if you want to make sure that you get the issue, we'll reserve it for you. So they did that, and I'm still getting Gargoyle books, and I love them.
All right, Dorian, Gargoyles for you. How about you?
Okay, so I came in really late to the game. When she's talking about the controversial third season, that was our jam.
Really?
For people my age, because it's already off the air, and episodes of Gargoyles season 3, which was known as the Goliath Chronicles, are now in reruns, along with DuckTales, Chip 'n Dale Rescue Rangers, the whole shebang. The Disney afternoons dying. Because again, when I was growing up, like, the cool shit was Quack Pack, and then everybody looks at that.
That was the beginning of the death of the Disney afternoon. Quack Pack and the Mighty Ducks cartoon.
Yeah, but see, to us it wasn't, because we just got to the party. So we think this is the big band. You're like, we just missed the openers. This is what we were waiting for. So again, as I talked about before, with it being kind of Gargoyles being seen as the devil. I mean, look at the poster behind me. I mean,
right.
What Christian person is going to go, yes, let's totally let our child watch that, because our heads are so far up our ass we can't see. Any hoodle.
Give that man a Bible to sell.
Right? Have you found Jesus? I didn't know he was lost. But anyway, so I ended up, it was really kind of cool. My friend Jack, who I would hang out with a bunch, had an older sister who was a sophomore in high school, and she'd gotten into a very bad car accident. So her sophomore year and a good chunk of her junior year, she was kind of stuck at home. Now, she could move around, but it was just, you can't really, be bouncing around at school. So we kind of made this weird, and I know I made the drug dealer joke earlier, kind of made this weird deal. It was like, we'll do your laundry and such if you'll record Gargoyles for us. So she kind of became our dealer. So we ended up watching a whole bunch of that. A lot of it was
reminder, folks, before streaming, we had to use this old contraption called a VCR.
Oh yeah.
No, this was DVD burning.
DVD burning. Okay.
Yeah. You can make me feel even older. Way to go,
wowzers.
Dorian.
Man.
So DVDs were easier to hide,
True.
VHS, you got a big motherfucker.
Big, yep. I know what you mean.
But again, I ended up falling in love with the story, simply because it was, as Alexis said, that mixture between fantasy and sci-fi, and again, the joke with the Star Trek uniform was, by the time we got to Goliath Chronicles, the character of Xanatos, who in the first 2 seasons had been a villain, is now a good guy. He's on the team. He's
trust but verify.
Right.
They don't trust him totally, but they know he's not going to kill them.
But the point is, like, I'm sitting there listening to it going, that is the voice of Commander Riker. What the hell? Okay. And so Demona, which is a character that was voiced by Marina Sirtis, obviously who played Deanna Troi on Next Generation, didn't show up as much in the Goliath Chronicles ones, but I ended up, when I went back and started watching the show in its first 2 seasons, I was able to see her more. I was like, that's okay. So the bad guy is William Riker, and the other kind of bad guy is Deanna Troi. This is just reverse Star Trek. What's happening? Then Brent Spiner shows up as Puck, and it was insane.
Whoa, wait.
And then, so there's a running joke about how the casting director for this apparently had the phone numbers for the casting director on Star Trek The Next Generation, because yes, Jonathan Frakes, Marina Sirtis, Brent Spiner, Michael Dorn. I'm trying to remember if there were any other major.
sure Patrick Stewart
characters.
was like a random New York citizen who went, "Oh my."
Yeah, right. Swear I might have just seen a meme about that too recently because Facebook was logging my gargoyle searches. That's crazy.
Yeah, Nichelle Nichols was on it. Avery Brooks, Colin Meaney, Kate Mulgrew, LeVar Burton, Paul Winfield, David Warner.
Wow. That's crazy.
The producers considered asking Frakes and Sirtis to personally appeal to Sir Patrick Stewart to perform a voice for scale, but decided it was an unfair request.
Well, he's done Family Guy and American Dad at this point, and The Simpsons. I mean, you at least could have asked the man.
Well, Family Guy didn't exist at this point.
No, but The Simpsons did.
It's true. So you got your dose of gargoyles hanging out with your friend while they recorded them on DVD, and you watched all of this was season 3 you were talking about, right? Or right?
Yeah, and again, eventually, like every now and again, they play an old one, and again, anytime it came on, she'd record that. So we kind of got it out of order. But again, then years later, I was able to see it with a friend of mine who had recorded the whole thing because they were actually a huge fan of it from day one. Like how I am for Batman the Animated Series, they were for Gargoyle. So I got the chance to watch all of it. I didn't get into the comic books until about 2 years ago. And I cannot remember what issue it is. I meant to set this out, but I just didn't. I literally came from work to this. So, but I was like, oh my God, they kept going. And I was like, they were like, well, I mean, technically, I was like, all right, fine. And then I saw this one and I was like, okay, this is from the creator. This is from God himself. Like, oh, right. So,
right.
This one I read the minute I got my hands on it.
Well, it's funny you talk about the Goliath Chronicles being such an important part because this book pretty much ignores like everything in the Goliath Chronicle. I'm trying to remember if the Goliath Chronicles was helmed by a different, if Weisman really was kind of hands off with it. I'm trying to find the info on that. But yeah, it went in a very different direction. We had a lot of much more different storylines, including one where Broadway becomes a TV personality, which was weird. And then they tried to introduce a new set of villains called the Quarrymen, who were essentially just anti-Gargoyle.
Who look like Klansmen except in black instead of white.
Oh my.
I thought they were dressed in dark blue. Or was that like an inking thing?
It might have been an inking thing, but they had like the whole hood thing with the like little slit eyes. And it was like, okay, so it's Klansmen, except you're wearing black this time. Yes, we decided to be chic as we upgraded ourselves. Okay.
So, yeah, not a lot of fans were crazy about it.
To wrap this up, a big part of Gargoyles for me, and unfortunately, I was not able to get the picture in time, but I've gotten the chance to work with Keith David, who obviously was the voice of Goliath. And we got to talk about this and kind of joke about how like I'd been introduced to the Goliath Chronicles, and he's like, "Oh man, you just came in at the wrong time." He's like, "You've seen the rest of it now, right?" And I'm like, "Yes, I've seen the rest of it." You know, he's like, "All right, I'm just making sure because like I didn't want to leave without being like, go back and watch the first 2 seasons."
Oh, here it is. The 3rd season was largely produced by an entirely different creative team than seasons 1 and 2. Some fans refused to consider this season as part of the franchise's continuity. Producer Greg Weisman later wrote a comic book continuation of the original syndicated series for Slave Labor Comics. That's what we're looking at today.
No, today we're actually looking at a 2020. What was this? 2023 from Dynamite. Slave Labor came out.
Oh, you're right. That was the that was the time jumping with
Time Dance
Brooklyn thing. Yeah.
There's
this is a continuation of that.
Magic dance, dance, magic dance.
There was a bunch of comics. This is between 2006 and 2009 that Slave Labor Graphics continued with a bunch. There was the time dancing stuff that you were talking about. There was something else I think that was titled. I wish I could remember what it was called. I'll find it. But anyway, yeah. So there's a little bit in between this and when the series ended, and that's that slave labor graphics comics that came out, which I didn't read, but I got a synopsis. Before this airs on my feed, they're going to be able to hear about 2 paragraphs of what happened in that comic. But yeah, it's still this is still a continuation of that series, and there's apparently some characters. I don't know. You guys might know these characters that are in this book better than I do, but supposedly some of these characters that are showing up in this book are ones that weren't in the series, but I could be wrong. So you guys point them out. I don't know if you guys saw any or not, but did you guys recognize everybody that was in here that we read?
I haven't read the slave labor or the slave comics, and for the record, I tried looking them up. Good luck finding those at a decent price on eBay. People who have them know that they're not going to get reprinted, and they're pricey.
Right.
Jesse, I think you meant did we recognize all the characters from Here in Manhattan?
Here in Manhattan, yeah, that's what I meant.
Yeah.
Did you? Yeah. Okay, good. So they didn't throw any in here that were possibly introduced in that series to leave people confused. Like, oh man, I got to find these comics to understand where these characters are coming from. So as long as you guys saw them all, then great. I mean, I had no idea who was new and who wasn't. So
I think the only characters I wasn't familiar with were some of the mutants down in the labyrinth. I knew about the Time Dance, so I knew about Brooklyn's May Katana. I knew about their son and their egg. I knew all about that. I knew about Broadway and Angela getting together. But yeah, they talk about a bunch of mutants living down the labyrinth. I'm like, okay, I missed that part.
Yeah, Talon
not surprising?
Was Talon?
Yes, Talon was in the original series.
Okay, all right.
Talon and Maggie both were.
I don't think you need to know much else outside of that because the rest of those, they're kind of.
Ladies and gentlemen, there's a whole bunch of gargoyles that are on a building, and when nightfall comes, they break out of the rocks and they go kick ass.
Yes, they do.
If you can understand that, you're caught up.
All right, so let's get into Here in Manhattan here. We already talked about half of our creative team, which is Greg Weisman. The other half is a person by the name of George, and I'm most likely going to mispronounce this, believe it or not, but I'm going to try my best, try my most Appalachianist.
I actually looked this one up.
Did you?
I can actually say his name correctly. Kambadais.
Kambadais. Okay, very good. All right, so George Kambadais, he's the illustrator. Now, I looked up I just went on the comic database and checked out what he had done there, but he also has a website, and he kind of lays it out for you what he's done in the past. I'll just kind of give him some props here as to what he did. According to him, he says, I've worked with DC Comics, Dynamite, IDW, Image, Dark Horse, Boom, Oni, and others. Right now, I'm working on the Gargoyles, which he was, for Dynamite, and on IDW's Dungeons and Dragons Saturday Morning Adventures. I'm also working on various projects for DC Comics, like providing variant covers and pages for the Splash. Excuse me, not Splash, not Daryl Hannah and Tom Hanks. No, for the Flash, Batman, White Knight Presents, Red Hood #2, Dark Crisis Warzone, Dark Crisis The Deadly Green. So yeah, he's got he's pretty young, it looks like. So he's not been in the business very long, but he's definitely made a little bit of an impact. When you're doing some illustrating for the big two, it's a big deal. Let's go ahead real quick. I'll go ahead and get into the synopsis unless there's something else of the first 3, which, by the way, Dorian, this is how we do things. I'll usually break it in half. So I'm going to do the first 3 issues. I'll do a synopsis. We'll break and talk. And then I want to do the last 3, break and talk, and then we're done. So
I just want to give a good shout out to another one of the artists who did the covers. That's Amanda Connor.
Oh yeah,
did a lot of great things. Got some not so known people, David Nakayama and Jai Lee, who also helped with that as well. But since we talked about artists, they deserve a shout out while we're in that ballpark.
So I assume your guys' trade has all the covers, variant covers for each issue.
Let me see here. Should be in the back here somewhere.
And just to double check here, this was only 6 issues, correct?
The Here in Manhattan is only the first 6 issues.
All right.
The story does continue. They said that another trade will be coming out.
Yeah.
I don't have the exact date in front of me, but I told my guys at the comic shop to make sure that when it comes out, I'd love to be on the list. I joked with them because they're like, well, you did order the individual issues. I'm like, yeah, but trade looks better on the bookshelf.
Yeah, they have announced that they are going to issue 12 with this storyline.
Okay, yeah, that's what I thought.
And the last one, just to tease everyone, so you keep listening to the podcast, and maybe we'll have more information for you. The last one will be called Gargoyles number 12, Phoenix.
Phoenix. Interesting. Okay. All right. Well, all right. So yeah, let me go ahead and I'll break down the first 3 issues here. And I might get a little wordy here, but it's a few paragraphs. So bear with me. In the bus.
Your podcast, boss. You take it.
Oh, that's right, buddy.
Yeah, we're just here along for the ride, and I'm here to press buttons.
Perfect. In the bustling cityscape of Manhattan, NYPD detective Elisa Mazza and her partner Matt Bluestone find themselves embroiled in a high-speed chase, hot on the trail of some ATM bandits. Their pursuit is dramatically aided by the city's hidden protectors, the Gargoyles, who swoop in to apprehend the criminals. Among these Gargoyles is Goliath, their formidable leader, who shares a romantic relationship with Elisa. Brooklyn, Goliath's loyal second in command. I want to break down the characters here for anybody that's listening. Brooklyn, Goliath's loyal second in command, is a prominent figure in the clan. And you guys step in here if I missed anything or screwed anything up, okay? Because that's your job. That's your job. Is a prominent figure in the clan. He has a mate named Katana. And together, there you have a son, Nashville, affectionately known to called Nash. Brooklyn's Rookery brothers, Lexington and Broadway, are also integral members of the group. Goliath's wise mentor, Hudson, and the enigmatic Coldstone, a cyborg zombie gargoyle, along with Cold Fire, a robot gargoyle, and Coldstone's partner, add to the diverse clan. Goliath's daughter, Angela, who is in a relationship with Broadway, further enriches the Gargoyle family. The Gargoyles are bound by a unique existence. They come to life only at night, turning to stone during the day. Recently, Elisa, Matt, and the Gargoyles attempted to quash a gang war by arresting the leaders, Tony Dracon and Thomas. I'm going to go with Brode. Sure.
It's Dracon.
Well, we got Tony Dracon and then Thomas Brode, right? Okay. All right. Tony Dracon. However,
it's either Brode or Brody, but
I noticed there was. Go ahead.
There's not like an accent on the E, so it's like, hey, be more specific if you're going to get fancy with us.
Is there an E on the end of that? For some reason, I wrote down BROD and I just left it. So maybe
iPod has an E, but
hang on, I'm looking it up. Looking it up. Admittedly, Brode was brought in. It's just BROD, no E, no accent.
Okay. All right.
And admittedly, the character was brought in very quickly near the end of the second season, and I think actually only appeared in 1 or 2 episodes, whereas Dracon and his family line was seen in a lot of the first 2 seasons of Gargoyles.
Okay.
It's kind of interesting how much they play of not just the fantasy of the Gargoyles, but since they are now the protectors of Manhattan, we do see a lot with them working with Elisa, a police detective, to help take down the crime families.
Okay.
Which again is very much, in my opinion, kind of, and again, the season creator, I get it. Again, I love everything he's done. Excuse me. Kind of reaching back to that whole, well, it worked with Batman and Jim Gordon, so shut up. These people have wings too. There's just more of them.
All right. So how the remnants of their gangs now battle for control, causing chaos and inviting other gangs to try and seize the opportunity.
Nothing worse than a power vacuum.
That's right. That's right. Coldstone and Coldfire returned from patrol, reporting a recent skirmish between the gangs that they managed to disrupt. Coldstone is conflicted, questioning why they should protect humanity, and even suggests revealing their existence. Goliath reminds them of their ancient purpose, to protect the castle. Castle, how was it pronounced in the series? Was it Wyvern? Or Wyvern? Yeah. Okay, Wyvern? Okay.
I think I heard both versions,
for the longest time, I thought that sounds like Wyvern. And I've never watched the show, and I was wondering.
Well, it doesn't help that they're protecting everyone with Scottish accents, so good luck.
Okay, fair enough.
This is the castle. Right. What that motherfucker said.
So yes, they are sworn to protect the castle and not aspire towards a future and to aspire towards a future where they can coexist peacefully with humans, though the time is not yet right. Elisa receives an urgent message from her brother Derek. Now, Derek, in parentheses, was a human at one point, but now has been transformed. Okay, stay with me, into a creature named Talon, which is a blend of a panther, a bat, and an electric eel. Okay, go ahead.
Xanatos, the original bad guy for the first 2 seasons, was dead set on creating his own loyal gargoyles. He wanted the gargoyles, but he wanted ones that would obey only him. He contacted a criminal mad scientist named Anton Severius, voiced by Tim Curry, because who else? To create this.
We need a mad scientist. Don't get strung out by the way I look. Oh, right on time, buddy.
Yes, the idea was that it was like, well, kind of like my necklace with the cat gargoyle design. I believe the electric eel was because they couldn't figure out how the gargoyles were maintaining their energy. Because for a gargoyle to exist the way it was, they had to eat like 3 times their body weight in order to do the things they do.
No,
so the electric...
Go ahead, sorry.
Sorry, go ahead. Go ahead, Dorian. It's okay.
You finish first. Sorry, I interrupted you.
Yeah. So yeah, the electric eel genes were to help them control and harness energy, which, as a nice little plus side effect, also gave them electric powers. So, OP.
No, the reason the electric eel and everything else was because Xanatos got really drunk and watched that weird ass Marlon Brando and Val Kilmer Island of Dr. Moreau and went, I can do that.
But yeah, short version, too late. Derek Mazza was hired as a bodyguard for Xanatos, accidentally got shot with the mutagen. Of course, we find out in later episodes this was planned all along. You find out that Xanatos, it's kind of scary how much he is 10 steps ahead of everyone.
Playing that long game, huh?
Yeah, he plays the long game like crazy. And then you come across Thylog, who I'm sure you'll get to, who's even more planning 10 steps ahead of the game. And
he was trained by Captain Jean-Luc Picard. Why are you shocked? I'm going to keep coming back to that. I'm sorry.
But yes, that is always a constant thing in this series. The villains are always at least one step ahead of the gargoyles. They have contingency plan after contingency plan. They know how every character is going to react, and they plan accordingly. Yes, Dorian.
There's actually a reason for that. Sorry, I didn't want to interrupt you. This is actually in all seriousness. This is not a joke. There was a reason for that in the writing of the show originally. Was that obviously Batman the Animated Series is taking the world by storm, and Batman always wins. There's actually an episode. I'm not trying to take us off the rails here, but there's a episode called Riddler's Reform in Batman the Animated Series, where at the end there's a no-win scenario for Batman, and he still gets out of it. And like the Riddler's in Arkham going, I want to know how he did it, And we cut to like Dick Grayson and Bruce, and Dick's like, how did you do it? He's like, well, when everything went to hell, I got in the safe. And it's like, really? Okay, well, you're Batman.
Yeah, he literally jumped into a safe.
Yeah, it's like
to avoid a giant explosion.
So again, which works, but again, there was a whole bunch of notes given. Sorry, I've got my notes actually here. Given by Disney execs that the characters of our heroes, the gargoyles, could not be so overpowered or overintelligent that they'd be able to beat everything in the way Batman did. They wanted the characters to have have flaws and be like, crap, we didn't see this one coming. Now we got to scramble to add not only to the tension, but also separate from Batman the Animated Series.
Right. Makes sense.
You still have a handful of villains who get defeated on a regular basis. You have Fox and Hyena, who show up periodically and got beaten. You have some criminals of the week kind of a thing. But yeah, Thylog and Xanatos were always just like, oh, they won this little battle. The war is still continuing kind of a thing.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I had a brief issue with the mutagen thing, even though I was not, by the time I was in the game, this show's off the air, it's having its sequels. I will create a mutagen that will do this. I'm going, excuse me, that's Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, and they kind of already have the market cornered on that.
Turtles show up to Xanatos. You've been served, bruh.
The
No,
turtles
that's
will
why
cross over with anybody, by the way.
That's why the turtles were called the mutants. Those living in the labyrinth with talent are called the mutates.
Oh, there you go.
Two different
Well,
things.
We changed a letter.
There actually should be a crossover between the turtles and the gargoyles. I mean, that
yeah,
I don't
they're all in
understand
New
why.
York.
Why have? I mean, my goodness, they have crossed paths with just about everybody. Gargoyles should be on the list. I don't know if. Well, I don't know. I don't want to take us down another rabbit hole. But
Hey, I've still got Batman versus the Ninja Turtles, both in comic form and on DVD, and it's one of my favorite guilty pleasures.
Cowabunga. What? Kick. But sorry, sir. Leaving with that joke, please get us back on track.
Oh my goodness, Talon. So hey, we started with Talon. Talon, who is Elisa's brother, sends a message and says, "Hey, you need to get over here. You're about to be an aunt. You are going to get the Maggie the cat.
Maggie the cat. Obligatory moment of silence for all of the Tennessee Williams fans who actually got that joke.
She is on the verge of giving birth. All right. So in our second issue, Angela, Goliath, and Broadway visit Brooklyn's unhatched egg, Eguardo, apparently. What a name, huh? Eguardo.
I love Katana. It's a joke name, isn't it?
Yep. Their visit is cut short when Angela, Goliath, Coldfire, and Broadway rush to witness Maggie's delivery, only to find everyone unconscious. And Maggie, along with the midwife, Mary, missing. Mary, yeah. Mary awakens to a nightmarish scene. All right, so Mary's waking up and she sees Maggie still in labor, but they are now prisoners in a lab run by the nefarious Dr. Anton Savarius, who is taking orders from the villainous Thyalog. Is that how you pronounce it? Thyalog?
Yep, Gargoyle, or it's Goliath spelled backwards.
Oh, that's right. That is right.
No, that's literally who he is. He's Goliath's clone.
He's his clone.
Yeah, again, for the longest time, that was all Xanatos wanted, was obedient gargoyles. So he tried everything to try to get it.
Meanwhile, in the writer's room, hey, Bizarro worked for Superman. We'll just do the same thing and just see if anybody catches it.
Nobody's going to notice.
Hey, it gives us a dual performance from Keith David, okay? No complaints.
I'm not complaining. I'm just pointing out what they did.
No complaints.
Yeah, not to mention Keith David is freaking awesome when he gets to play a villain. He lands that evil laugh so well.
Oh man. Believing Xanatos is behind the abduction, Goliath and his team confront him, along with Derek. Meanwhile, the Dracon crime family is in turmoil as Dominic Dracon, the elder patriarch, is released from Bellevue Hospital. He's feigning a little bit of dementia there. His granddaughter, Antoinette Dracon, collects him, and they anxiously anticipate Uncle Dino's release from prison and his potential takeover of the family business. Yes, that's right. There are the criminal underworld is in upheaval, and there is one guy that's still getting out of prison, and these guys are worried about Dino. Dino's going to cause some problems. What are we going to do when he gets out? Now, in the third issue, Xanatos denies any involvement in Maggie's abduction. No, it's not me. Goliath, trusting him, convinces Derek to stand down. Surprisingly, Xanatos offers his assistance in locating Maggie and Mary. They soon deduce that Thyalog is the true mastermind behind the kidnapping. Donning his gargoyle armor, Xanatos joins the team as they head to Nightstone Unlimited, only to find it fortified with force fields. Xanatos manages to breach the shields, allowing Derek, Goliath, Broadway, Coldfire, and Angela to storm in, where Maggie is definitely in labor. A fierce battle ensues with Thyalog as Mary focuses on delivering Maggie's baby. The conflict reaches a sudden halt when Maggie gives birth to a completely human child. Disappointed, Thyalog ceases his attack, permitting them to leave with the newborn be gone. Back at the labyrinth,
tell me anyone else get like a Twilight Breaking Dawn ending there, just like, oh, never mind. Get out.
Well, no,
Yep.
It only works if Xylog is like,
Oh, God.
like Michael Sheen did in the movie, then yeah, you'll be like, okay, now we're in the pipe. Let's do this.
I can hear Tim Curry doing that.
Oh,
Right.
please.
You just love my toxic love.
So
you Fern Gully fans out there. Sorry, I'll shut up.
Oh, you're right. Thyalog ceases his attack, permitting them to leave with the newborn. Back at the labyrinth, the baby is named Michael Peter Massa, and the community gathers to welcome the newest member. However, as night falls and Maggie puts the child to sleep, it becomes clear that the infant possesses mysterious powers unknown to everyone else. And that's how we end issue 3. So there you go. First 3 issues of Here in Manhattan. I mean, I'll go ahead and start. I'll get my notes out of the way, and then I'll throw it to you, Alexis, here. I do like, they do this trend, and they kind of start this in these issues, how they start each issue kind of like at the vantage point of one of the clan or one of the people. Because as we reach further into the series, it's not just going to be strictly the clan that they're looking, they start the issue with. Sometimes it's other people, but I do like that. I think that's pretty cool. It's a neat way of getting people, in tune with the character. We'll just put it that way. I am also appreciative of the fact that there are a ton of characters in this franchise, and I don't have a problem keeping track of who is who. I mean, I was kind of confused, the Cold Fire, Cold Stone, which one's which, but then it took me a couple seconds. I was like, oh yeah, that's the zombie guy. And I was able to figure that one out from there on out. They all look very different. Clearly you want that. And, our artist here does a fantastic job of letting us at least be able to follow the art and the characters at the same time. Sometimes artists can't do that, and it's hard to tell the difference between some characters. But luckily, I'm sure that Weisman was like, we need somebody that could do this well.
Another way that really helps is that in a lot of the scenes, the boxes, especially the either voiceover from the back or the narration, they're done in different colors.
True.
For example, you have this scene with Cold Stone and Cold Fire. Cold Stone's dialogue is highlighted in black. Cold Fire's is highlighted in yellow.
Right.
So little things like that also really help, because I'm sure there's even sometimes where it's like when you have that large battle in the as the baby's being born, you have characters talking, you have everyone fighting, you're going, wait, who's saying what?
Right.
So doing things like little touches like that, I appreciated when they put in that extra effort to help the reader.
100%.
Right. It kind of goes back to that scene from that super old movie Aristocats. When the mouse is trying to break the safe, and there's a fight going on in the background. He finally turns and goes, quiet. Thank you. Goes back to work, because that confusion can sometimes, especially if you're having a huge scene, get really confusing on who's wait, who's saying who to what now?
Right. Exactly.
Well, I'm sure, Jesse, I'm sure you've seen some splash pages of fight scenes where it was abundantly clear that the artists did not make enough notes on where to put the dialogue boxes. So you're looking, it's going, wait, who's what? And it becomes very hard to tell who's saying what.
And it sucks too, because it'll take you out. You're in the midst of like, okay, it's a heated battle. These are my characters, and then you're trying to figure things out. And it kind of takes you back into like shit.
The only time I've seen that done well is in, and they ended up bringing this kind of into Star Wars canon. They had a before Star Wars Visions became a TV show, they had a actual comic book of just random artists that had had a storyline and stuff like that, and they had a fight between Darth Maul and Obi-Wan Kenobi. And it was literally just they were still white voice bubbles, and they were like talking to the Force. But they did do something so different as like Maul's, the ragged lines around Maul's stuff was more violent, and the ones around Kenobi's was a little bit more calm. But again, if you weren't paying attention, you had to it did make you lean in and read okay, does Palpatine know? Oh shit, this is Obi-Wan. Again, there have been several comics I've read, especially older ones, where it's like, did you realize that actual people were going to be reading this and be somewhat confused? Or were you just like, look at what I have created.
Look at what I've done.
Weep at my amazingness.
Make sense of it.
Ask me what it means.
Right.
That is your third time quoting Doug Walker on this show.
Needs all the help he can get.
I want to ask, and we'll start with you, Alexis, and then Dorian, because you watched the third season, Dorian, and Alexis watched, obviously fan of the first two, and I know you guys all watched all three, but Xanatos and Goliath's relationship, you've already kind of talked about it a little bit, about how they were it was an antagonistic relationship at first. So, Alexis, what was it like in the series between these two?
For the longest time, Goliath never wanted to trust Xanatos. He was absolutely furious with him. I remember one episode where for a while the characters actually had to flee the castle, and they are actually living in a clock tower above police headquarters. Because Xanatos, it's basically kind of clear. It's like Xanatos is going to kill them if they stay there. And Goliath sees this news report about Xanatos doing a charitable donation and talking about how he has so much to give and everything. And Goliath just storms out. He is so furious. It takes forever for him to even be willing to be near him and not wanting to just choke the life out of him. He blames Xanatos for practically everything. And yet, strangely enough, Xanatos managed to get him to be his best man at his and Fox's wedding. Go figure. So, yeah, it's very much trust but verify. There's a lot of times, in fact, what was the great line where there's an episode where they have to save Fox. And Goliath helps Xanatos do it, and Xanatos looks at Goliath and says, "Now you know my only weakness." And Goliath looks at him and goes, "Only you would consider love a weakness."
Man, oh man. So in the third season, Dorian, they're friends?
Well, I mean, not like bestest buddies, okay. Goliath and Xanatos, Rescue Rangers.
Spin-off series.
Right. But there's an understanding. And obviously, again, getting to see the original episode did kind of change, a little bit later, change my thought on that. But again, there got to a point where Goliath, again, being somebody who dude, I can rip you in two. And I can't. Well, the only reason I can't is because we're on Disney Channel. So, and Xanatos being smart enough to realize, yeah, I know that, things kind of fell backwards a little bit, not in a bad way, but just, okay, is this you? Dude, I have been sitting right here. Again, they couldn't do this on Disney Channel. And by the way, I've cussed a couple of times. Are we allowed to cuss on your podcast?
Yeah, it's fine, man.
Okay.
You're fine.
I was always waiting for, and I know they never do it, but Goliath to bust in the doors of Xanatos's, private quarters, and he's making out with two girls on his bed going, "Can I help you?" And the Goliath being there was an issue earlier. I thought you were involved. Never mind. And fucking leaving. So I really liked their relationship, and I liked how this comic book played on it, simply because it's okay, yeah, you're the first one I go to. Mm-hmm. For every heroic character, there is their devil,
main nemesis,
main nemesis, nemesis. For those of you who are fans of Mystery Men, there you go. Nemesis. But there's also those moments where it's dude, I am not the only one trying to light fire to your world. Mm-hmm. Sometimes I'm not doing anything, and I there were moments in the show that it wasn't always Xanatos, it was someone else. But you got that hint that Goliath's first thought was what the hell, dude? Mm-hmm. I am gonna chop off your ponytail just to piss you off.
There's also kind of Xanatos is always suave, calm, smug. There is very rarely a time in the series where you actually see him legit angry. I don't think he yells or raises his voice at all through the entire series.
There's one point, I do believe it's in season 2, he's standing on top of something, he's got his arms raised, and he's bellowing. But again, I guess an argument could be made that's not yelling, that's bellowing and being full of yourself.
Yeah, I mean,
But
even in
sorry, really quick. One of the things I loved about Xanatos is he was very much the Professor Moriarty style character. And whereas Goliath is very intelligent, it's not like Professor Moriarty to Sherlock Holmes. They weren't ripping something off. It's like Goliath is very deep, very soulful. It almost felt like they took, for Xanatos, the character of Professor Moriarty, and based that off, use that as the basis. And for Goliath went, what if Superman was a goth? And to me, I think that really works. Is like you can tell that Xanatos is very much more intelligent in the world he lives in, because Goliath, hadn't lived in that world for very, very long. And Goliath has this code that he sticks to that is from, 1,000 years ago. And Xanatos is like, hey, my brain just keeps getting bigger. I just kind of roll with the punches of the world I live in. And one of the reasons that we love Goliath as a hero, he's like, no, this is wrong. This is right. This is what we're going to do. And, hell be damned if it doesn't work with everyone else's aesthetic. So,
well, sticking with the series and comparing it to the comic, what do you think of the art style, Dorian, comparing it to what you saw in the series? Let him swallow. I mean, let him think.
Well, that was actually a think and a swallow at the same, because I was starting to talk. I was like, actually, I had water in my mouth. I actually really liked it. It wasn't exactly, obviously, what I remember, but again, I knew it wasn't going to be, from cartoon to comic book. But reading it, I felt I was right back there in the world that I knew, and I was very, very impressed with the art style. It didn't take me out of it. Again, like I said, I felt like I was just right back in that world. But as I started off talking about, it did feel like a storyboard of like, this is what you would animate were we to continue. And again, if hell, this podcast, and I hope a whole bunch of other people are talking about here in Manhattan. Listen to this podcast first, and listen to all the other ones they've done. Then go look for other peoples that have done Gargoyles in Manhattan. But I'd be excited if Disney, and especially the original creator and the animators that he could bring around, could come back and do this as a storyline, especially a more mature one, because the fans have grown up. Yes, this I love the art style.
It's good to hear. I mean, there are definitely some.
I was trying to wrap up my thought. It didn't drive off the highway. That's
good
point.
Yeah, there's some artists that. Alexis, were you present when we did the DC? I want to say it was like the Hanna-Barbera DC crossover. Were you a part of one of those? Okay.
Yeah.
Then there was Scooby-Doo Apocalypse.
Don't you remember when I started talking about Flash versus Speed Racer as I tried to do Speed Racer's impersonation in the middle? I said, "Oh, damn it, I just spit all over my phone."
Scooby-Doo Apocalypse. I don't remember if you were part of that as well. I know
I was the one that said, "For the love of God, Velma, will you quit blaming yourself and move the hell on?" Because like every other page with her, she's like, "This is my fault." So I was like, "Yes, we know. Skip ahead."
Yes, you hate yourself and you're very, 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 very deep in depression, and we're going to deal with that as soon as we beat the bad guy. Therapy, BetterHelp, ladies and gentlemen.
BetterHelp,
our ad sponsor for today. Not really. It is not really. Our ad sponsor.
Yeah. Well, the point I was trying to make is like, those series took an artist that was not trying to, get across animated art in any way. And it was always kind of jarring. I mean, I still like to read it. It was still fun to read, but this felt very animated in my opinion. When I was reading it, I was like, this definitely reminded me of what a cartoon would look like. So Alexis, your thoughts on the art style?
I agree, but not in the way of like it looked like a dopey cartoon or anything. It definitely matched the style. There was a couple of panels that I wasn't a huge fan of, mostly just some of the human designs. I know there was at least one where Eliza's in the jail, and there was a way she looked at someone else, just like that's Eliza. What the hell? Just it looked so off. But better than I could probably draw. So, I was like, okay, what are you going to do? But for the most part, I thought it looked great. I loved the shading and the use of lighting in this. I loved how little they relied on black lines to define these characters. So much of the lighting was just done from lighting the colors. A lot of artists we know would still have black lines defining their muscles and where all of the parts of their body are. This doesn't. There's so many parts where you look at the way the gargoyles are drawn and it's like, no, there are no black lines on them. It's just the use of the lighter color, and it looks great. I love it when an artist can use highlights like that.
I agree 100%. All right, last question, and I'll let you guys, if you guys have any thoughts on these first 3 issues, I'll let you throw them out there. Did you read them in the voices of their characters? So, in other words, I assume there was no separating in your head what you heard on the television show versus what you were reading?
Are you kidding me? If I had my way, I'd have Keith David narrate my life.
And Alexis went and made Scrabble tiles for her next project. And then we stood guarding her work.
You wish that your voice was that awesome.
I can't go that deep. I'm sorry. I was doing my best.
You can.
What?
I said few can.
Like I can.
The man's got a baritone that makes everyone's legs turn to jelly.
It's like I can do Conroy as Batman. That's the best I got going.
I was Conroy. That was impressive. No, I did. I definitely did. Although, admittedly, it gets funny when you get to D.A. Yale, who was okay. So, again, without going it is so hard to talk about this book without going into mountains of exposition about these characters from the series. My God, this is hard. This is hard. I was going to say, I suddenly feel like I'm back on the Harry Potter discussion where Mark just basically asked me his questions. I'm going, well, actually trying to discuss why something was in the movie. It's like, well, if you read the book, it makes sense.
Okay, if she's going to do that, real quick, folks, for those of you who are listening, pause it right here. Go to Disney Plus. They're not paying us to say this, but go to Disney Plus, watch the first 2 seasons of Gargoyles, then come back. And what she's about to say will make total sense. This has been your get out of Dodge now if you don't know what she's talking about. Warning. 3, 2, 1. Okay, Alexis, fire away.
Okay, so this actually was canon from the 3rd season. D.A. Yale was a background character in the first 2 seasons called Margot. She and her husband Brendan, because she pronounced his name exactly like that, were often seen at the place where the gargoyles or something would happen and the gargoyles would interfere. Mm-hmm. It's like, oh, someone's getting mugged. Oh, it's Brendan and Margot. Gargoyles gonna interfere. Magic is spouting out. Someone's running away. It's Margot and Brendan. You get what I'm saying?
Yeah.
It's like with Watchmen with the with Bernie and the kid who always read the comic books at his stand.
Oh yeah. Yep.
Yeah, it's like they were always the ones who were at the center of everything.
Mm-hmm.
Same concept. Well, Margot they were supposed to be this very 90s yuppies couple, especially since Margot still has that freaking huge headband. And yeah, she had the snobbiest voice. Again, her husband's name was Brendan. She's like, give him your wallet, Brendan, when they're getting robbed. So whenever I hear or I see her talk, it's like, I cannot imagine it without that snobby 90s yuppie voice. I just can't. It's Julia Louis-Dreyfus in freaking Christmas Vacation.
Oh my God. Give him your wallet, Brendan.
Well, not quite that Valley girl. Like there is a fine line between yuppie and Valley, but you get what I'm saying.
I understand.
There was this airy snobbery to it.
Okay. It's interesting because I have no basis other than what I could barely remember in the commercials, and so I have no idea what these characters sound like. And I read this book, and now I'm going to probably watch a couple episodes of Gargoyles pretty soon. just because, I want to get that feeling, because I know at some point, we're probably going to cover the second half of this book when it gets released. And, but yeah, hey, interesting to, and Dorian, I'm sure you're doing the same thing, right? Are you reading it in the voices of the characters?
For a good chunk of it, yeah. I actually, when I got the comic book, and especially when I knew I was going to be on this, I went back and I watched some of the, my favorite episodes from the whole thing, just kind of just reignite the fire. Like it's never gone out, but it, just get into that headspace. But yeah, even as I was reading it, I was like, again, you hear Keith David as Goliath. You just have to. I mean, that's just
right.
That's how it is. But I did go back and I listened to some of the voices and such, and was just like, what's funny is that these voices were already still in my head. I just didn't remember they were in my head. So it was kind of a beautiful moment for me. Like, and I started actually letting the episodes go, and I start going through the comic book and the trade, and it was just like, yep, So to me, it was kind of a beautiful, like, almost seeing an old friend you haven't seen in a long time, being like, well, how the hell are you?
Yeah. I mean, shoot. We're talking.
I should add that even if you're not, besides the Star Trek fans, this show's cast had some A-list voice actors. Besides Keith David, you have Jeff Bennett as Brooklyn, Bill Fagerbakke, who a lot of people also know as Patrick Starr as Broadway. You have Frank Welker doing Bronx, Ed Asner as Hudson, Tom Wilson as Bluestone, Kath Soucie as Maggie the Cat. You have recurring characters voiced by Laura San Giacomo, Jim Cummings, John Rhys-Davis, Clancy Brown.
Wow.
Like I said, I mentioned Tim Curry, Matt Frewer, Cree Summer.
I love how you only told the audience one of what those actors are known for. Everyone else, she's like, oh, you know what they've done. poor kids out there going, she just named off a whole bunch of names and they sound cool. But so rock on.
Jesse's already going to have to edit an hour out of this crap.
Please give me their whole list of IMDb, please. I heard Thomas F. Wilson, which I'm pretty sure I saw that actually, right on the
yes. Tom Wilson actually. I know a lot of people who don't realize that Biff from Back to the Future has quite the list of voice acting gigs. He's done a lot.
Right. All right. Well, I know I've hit you guys with a lot of questions. These first 3 issues, I do want to throw them to you. So, basically what we get here in our first 3, we get our reintroduction to the Gargoyles, kind of what they're doing. We've got this big to do with Maggie having her baby, and apparently it's possibly getting stolen by Thyalog. And then by the end of the third, we got all the criminal background, criminal underground stuff happening in the background, it seems. And then we see the little baby may possibly have powers. So Dorian, I'll throw it to you here first. Any notes on the first 3 that you can think of that you want to toss out there?
I'm going to be very quick on this, just because we've been shooting the stuff. And
take your time. Whatever you want to do, buddy.
Just again, as an editor myself, I'm going, crap. I don't want to make him have to go like, I'm going to kill both of these people and they're never going to be on the show again. But
if Jesse hasn't decided to kill me yet, don't worry, you're safe.
Yeah, you get 3 strikes.
3 strikes. You've given me like 20
this
strikes.
This would be 1. No, I'm just kidding too.
But no, not only as a lover of the show, but also as a filmmaker and a writer, I loved how they broke this down, because by the time you get to the end of part 3, they've broken up the 3-act structure, even though kept it at the same time. We have our first act was like, this is the world. If, you weren't a Gargoyles fan, but your girlfriend was, and, you're the boyfriend that she's handing the comic book to. Okay, it does introduce you to it very well. We get through Act 1 into, what I was called the Cataclysm. This is our problem, very easily. And, especially, and I loved the whole, oh, it's human, take and get out, moment of, because anyone who's a writer or anyone who's a film lover at all sees that, and especially if the 3-act structure, goes, oh shit. Even though we're like, yay, we won, oh no we didn't, oh no, because again, it's one of those, like, if the good guys win, and there's still 30 minutes left in the movie, you're going, I don't like this.
Mm-hmm.
So I was very happy about that. The first three issues was fantastic. It was a wonderful reintroduction to it, and I loved how they literally just cut off halfway, not even halfway through, a quarter of the way into what would be the second act structure, and just left us there.
Mm-hmm.
Like if you were getting these just by issue, you'd be screaming at the comic book going, "No, you can't do this to me!" You know.
Hey, you know what? Those of us who still remember having to watch TV when you couldn't stream a whole series at once and watching an episode, it ends on a cliffhanger. It's like, see you next week. And we're all going, no.
Man, oh man. Yeah. I mean, you're definitely itching for the next issue here at the end of issue 3. Alexis, what are your thoughts?
A little bit of spoilery for the upcoming issues, but I have to admit, I was a bit surprised with how much they dropped the whole thing with Talon and Maggie's baby. It's such a heavy part of these first 3 issues. And I love that they're continuing the storyline with these characters, but the remaining 3 issues, they're never come up again.
I'm just going to go ahead and be a little bit more spoilery. And I got to issue 10 and this ain't coming back up yet. So.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not going to lie. As much as I want to find out what else is going on with the other stuff, and we'll talk about that, I'm sitting there going, it's like, really? You revealed this kid still has his parents' electric powers or something else? I'm assuming that's what those eyes meant. Right. And nothing. I had assumed there would at least be one line from Elisa or from the other gargoyles about how they couldn't wait to go see the baby, because they talk about all the characters like, oh, we can't wait to see the baby. I mean, this is essentially a gargoyle baby. Mm-hmm. That's what the mutates are. They are a varied form of gargoyle. You would think this would be something that would come up.
I'm sorry, I left this out because I didn't want to spoil. I didn't think I wanted to wait until he got to the next issues. But again, if we're talking about this now, I love that they did that because it hooked you, it kept you there, and you kept leaning forward, going, and they take you on a whole different path. I love when movies do that. I love when comic books do that. So again, I got to respectfully disagree, Alexis. I love that they did that because it's like, okay, baby's safe, baby's born. We're good. Oh, there's other crap we got to deal with.
Yeah, it's setting up something at some point. That's got. I mean, clearly, you don't do that without being like, okay, something's got to happen at some point. And I'm all for that. Take me on another journey, and then when they do another series or we get to issue 13, whatever, we revisit it and we talk about it. But anyway, go ahead.
Yeah, like I said, I don't mind things like that, but I don't like it when they're dropped 100% cold turkey.
I want more. Tell me more.
Does that make sense? It's like, I'm okay with them holding off on resolving it for another storyline. I'm okay with that, but I just don't like that. And there's no mention of it ever again.
Nothing. Yeah, right.
Well, there is something in filmmaking that's called cut the shoe leather. And what that means is if we have a scene where the point of the scene, what we're trying to get to, is that Jesse is going to walk into your house, Alexis, and have a conversation with you. If we see Jesse in the car driving, or like we see him in his house and we see him like gathering his notes, and then we see him in the car, and then we see him at your front door, we see him knocking on the front door. If we cut to him sitting down in your office, that's fine. Because everything in between is what's called shoe leather. And the reason for that is like, again, if you've had a pair of like old school leather shoes, they have that creak, 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 creak to it when you move. We don't need to hear all of that creaking. Like, again, we know these characters. We love these characters. You bought this trade, more than likely you saw the show, or, you bought it for, somebody that you care about who loved the show. They know the characters. For a fact that they have gone and checked on the baby since then. It's fine. They know the baby's okay. We as the audience don't need that shoe leather because we know. it starts breaking down to a sense that you're taking up the time that we can go to a more important part of the story with going of, and Alexis checked on the baby 4 times and made sure that he was tucked in and had a very warm blanket. I'm sorry, I'm using you as an example just because I don't want to like tear about the story. So again, I see what you're talking about and I agree, but at the same time, it can be seen as shoe leather if we're going for a better story or like a larger storyline.
Well, the other thing is shoe leather or slash when it comes to comics, page count. I've only got so many pages I can do.
Very true.
I mean, that unfortunately is a lot of what, kind of hampers some storytelling every once in a while, or at least what a storyteller wants to get out there. So you never know. They might have actually intended to let's throw a mention of the baby in here. We don't have the pages for it. We got to get to this right now. We got to get to that right now. So
very true.
Yeah, but yeah, I mean, I get it. I do. I understand both arguments there for sure. Anything else there, Alexis?
I think I said my piece. We can move on. Well, it's like unless there's anything else Dorian wants to say, I think we can move on to the next 3 issues.
All right. Second part. Here we go. Next 3 issues. This is issues 4 through 6. In the 4th issue, the formidable Dino Dracon is released from prison, showing no signs of reformation. As he reconnects with his criminal empire, Dino discovers that the Dracons are no longer at the top of the crime families, and to his surprise, learns the Gargoyles are now allied with the police. Meanwhile, Goliath and his mentor Hudson sent out on a routine patrol of the city. Goliath is troubled by a growing sense of distance with their once close clan. Their patrol leads them to a park where they witness a group of henchmen disguised as gargoyles attempting to abduct some children. Some teenagers, we'll put it that way. As they intervene, the henchmen manage to escape with the teenagers. Three helicopters arrive, demanding Goliath surrender. Despite his efforts to escape, Goliath is ensnared in a net and captured. In the 5th issue, Hudson watches helplessly as Goliath is captured. Matt Bluestone steps in, explaining that he leads the Gargoyles task force and urging Goliath to trust him as they take him away by helicopter. Back at the castle, Broadway and Angela are preparing for their commitment ceremony when Hudson arrives with the grim news of Goliath's capture. Goliath awakens in a cell opposite of Tony Dracon and Thomas Brode. 2 characters you don't want to be sitting across from there. I think Goliath can hold his own, though. Elisa visits Goliath, only to see him turn to stone in his cell. She confronts Matt, who explains that a wealthy benefactor donated funds to upgrade their equipment for the Gargoyle task force. And because of that, the mayor has mandated the capture of a gargoyle. We've got the money now. What are you doing? You can't be sitting on this. You got to go get me a gargoyle. The clan devises a plan to rescue Goliath, but Elisa warns of increased security. Undeterred, Brooklyn leads Cold Stone and Cold Fire on a precision extraction mission. They successfully breach the prison, but are met with resistance. Despite gaining the upper hand, Goliath asks them both to leave, deciding to face the public and trial. Elsewhere, the Choi and Sanchez crime families receiving alarming news. Their children, Peter Choi and Rosaria Sanchez, have disappeared, and each family believes the other has kidnapped their child for ransom. So again, more deadly dealings with these crime families in the underground. The 6th issue delves deeper into Goliath's resolve. He insists that Brooklyn and the others leave, determined to see if humanity will accept the Gargoyles. So Goliath is going through with this. He's like, all right, fine. Let's just see if humanity is going to actually be able to accept the fact that, yeah, we're here. Xanatos steps in and securing legal counsel for Goliath. The reader we learn that Dino orchestrated the kidnapping of the Choi and Sanchez children to ignite conflict between the families. Dino also attempts to assassinate a Russian crime boss who survives, but still furthers Dino's plan to sow mistrust among these crime families. Antoinette Dracon seeks out Broadway, pleading for help against her uncle Dino. Broadway and Lexington encounter drones attacking a building owned by another crime boss. My gosh, they're not short of these. Slaughter, guy by the name of Slaughter. Despite their intervention, they are quickly outnumbered. Elisa returns to the castle with the news that Goliath will stand trial to determine his sentience. Yeah, this is interesting. It's not really going to be they're going to first look to see if they can consider a gargoyle sentient. And Antoinette confronts Dino, urging him to reconsider his plan to kill Broad, especially since her brother shares Broad's cell. Dino seemingly agrees, but advises Wolf, a member of the pack, which I don't know if he's a member at this time. It's obviously just Wolf that we could see at the end of this book, now transformed into a Wolfman. Which was he transformed in the series, in the animated series, into a wolf man?
Dorian, do you want me to take this one, or do you want to take it?
You take it.
I was gonna say you were pointing in the wrong direction.
I know, sorry.
Okay, so yeah, the pack was a squad of mercenaries who had their own TV show funded by Xanatos, who tried to kill the Gargoyles very early in the first season. They ended up kind of going their separate ways over time. You have Fox, who ended up getting released from prison, marrying Xanatos and having his child. You have the twins, Hyena and Jackal, who are just sociopaths and would spring up from time to time to commit various crimes and try to get their revenge. You had Dingo, who ended up just foregoing the criminal way and sort of going on a redemption path in Australia, which I think the slave labor comic talked about. And then you have Wolf. Now, about halfway through, I want to say it was the first season, Xanatos also sent a robot version of himself to assist the pack once the rest of them got out of jail, calling himself Coyote.
Oh, yeah, I remember this character. Okay.
And Coyote said, hey, have you guys ever thought about upgrades? So Wolf gets spliced and becomes this human-wolf hybrid, and Jackal and Hyena become cyborgs.
Okay, all right.
Yeah,
all right.
Dingo gets a mech suit very similar to Iron Man, and there's actually this great bit in that episode where Jackal and Hyena are making fun. I was like, we did what you were too afraid to do, you know. So yeah, Wolf for the most.
Jackal.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
I'm sorry. I do like the fact that Jackal and Hyena were, and the fact that they were teamed up, were done purposely. Just think about what it sounds like. Jekyll and Hyde.
Oh, okay. Here we go. Got it.
They've done that on purpose of, kind of messing with that. Like, hey, kids, you should read more books. But since you're here, see if you can catch the joke.
Yeah, and then to add even more, to this story arc, we find out that Wolf is, I'm trying to remember if he's a reincarnation or a descendant of the Viking who originally killed the rest of Goliath's clan.
Oh my gosh. Okay. None of that did I get when I saw Wolf. I knew Wolf was a big, I assumed he was a pretty big reveal here at the end of this 6th issue, as he's standing there and Dino's like, yeah, I need you to take care of some stuff for me. And I was like, who is this guy? Who is this? And then, of course,
I need to do a job for me.
Wolf is a mercenary. He's a human wolf hybrid. He loves to fight the Gargoyles, and he's voiced by Clancy Brown.
Nice. Okay. All right. Well, I mean, that's pretty much how we end the 6th issue is, Dino's like, hey, I got a job for you. You need to take care of Thomas Broad. And if my nephew gets in the way, Tony, if he gets in the way, if something happens, but don't make it a point to kill him. But if he gets in the way, it gets in the way, but make sure to take care of Thomas Broad. And that's kind of how we end that. I mean, I'm sure Wolf has plans to go also confront Goliath, who's sitting there in the cell across from him. But regardless, there we are. They're here in Manhattan, folks. So I want to start with you, Alexis, just real quick. I only got a couple questions for these last 3. But what do you think of our antagonist, Dino here?
Very,
It's
very
interesting
quickly,
'cause-
that could honestly be a character name in Gargoyles. This is
Dino. Oh, Antagus. Yeah, it's Antagus.
Antagus, yeah.
Dear Antagist.
Like I said, it's interesting because because the Dracon crime family was a large part of the Gargoyle series. Again, they're very similar to Dorian, a little help. What was the name of the crime boss in Batman Begins?
Falcone.
Yeah, it's a parallel very similar to the Falcone crime family from
Gotcha.
DC. So, in fact, Dino Dracon was voiced. Oh my God, what was the name of the actor who voiced Richard Grieco voiced freaking Tony Dracon.
Okay, all
So
right.
just to add to the fact that I'm sorry, I'm just going to say it. He gave him that
star.
Yeah, he gave him that sleazy, slimy, voice. Say again, Dorian.
I said B-movie and softcore porn star.
I had no idea it was in the softcore porn, but
Yeah,
although
when you're raised by somebody who's older and really horny, and you just kind of have to sit there and watch whatever they want to watch, you see a lot of shit.
Oh, it's funny.
I actually saw him in something "quote unquote" good, and I was like, "Oh my dude, I'm glad you got more work."
If looks could kill, I remember that one. I remember that. My goodness, that might have been. Oh my gosh, 1991. Wow.
I just knew him from Night at the Roxbury.
Yeah. Okay. All right.
Richard Grieco, what are you doing here? I don't want to get sued.
What are you doing here? Paycheck.
Plenty of made-for-TV movies, I'm sure. May have even been in a Lifetime movie here or there.
Well, again, I want to be very clear. For some reason, he stumbles upon this podcast. Sir, I am not insulting you. You are a fantastic actor.
No,
Richard.
no way.
You have done great
we
stuff.
Agree.
Again, it was one of the things that was great about, even though I missed a good chunk of it, the 90s and the animated shows we had and the actors that were in it. We had ones that, yes, have become legend now. I mean, like Kevin Conroy as Batman, and obviously Mark Hamill is the Joker. Just if we keep the Batman stuff, because we had actors who had been working for decades and decades in B movies that gave performances that, had it been live action, would have been Oscar worthy.
All right.
And again, not that Mark Hamill and Kevin Conroy and obviously Keith David in this, and very briefly coming back to the idea of like them making a live action movie. If they're going to do it, A, do it right, and B, I really think you should do it before Keith David decides he either doesn't want to act anymore, or because you need that voice behind it. And not that there's not other people who can do that voice, but again, he's still alive. He's the king. Let the king sit on his throne.
He's Husk. He's our Husk.
Don't get ahead of the story. There will be a source material, I'm sure, on the Has Been Hotel prequel comics.
Oh, please, I'd love to see it.
We'll let you know when Vivzy Pop writes them.
One step at a time.
Okay, yeah. So there's, we talking about the antagonist.
Antagist.
Antagist, the antagonist. Do you have any? Do you have any thoughts on Dino there, Dorian?
I like the characters. I liked our antagonists, our villains for this. I obviously love seeing Xanatos show back up and kind of this I didn't do shit role, because I still see him as an antagonist.
Right.
I just love how calm he was. You got freaking Talon kicking down the door into the room where his wife, and his infant son are, and Xanatos literally like, "Oh, hi. I heard you're having a child." Just like he's just so calm. And again, I think that adds a little bit more to wanting to punch his face.
Oh yeah.
Right. But yeah, the crime bosses, I really liked how they and actually Alexis literally took a note that I was about to say. So well done. You said it anyway. So that's taken care of. I liked how gritty they got with this one. And this wasn't a apocalyptic villain, but it can be a personally apocalyptic villain.
Mm.
We're not going, oh my God, the entirety of Manhattan will sink into the sea because, we're not dealing with that. We're dealing with, okay, we've gotten personal with this. And again, having been a fan of crime movies for a long time, obviously there's the line from Godfather. We all know, this isn't personal. It's strictly business.
Mm-hmm.
Which to me is in a way the most scary line you can ever say. Because imagine even if you look at The Godfather itself, which I know is a movie, not a comic book. Have they made a comic book of The Godfather?
Ooh, yeah. It immediately went through my head. I was like, I wonder if they made a comic book about The Godfather. I doubt it, but yeah,
it wouldn't surprise me though. I mean, I know a lot of movies have been transcribed into simple graphic novel, although admittedly they're usually like the most. We hired this artist on the cheap because we couldn't get anyone who had any talent to want to come near this with a 10-foot pole kind of thing.
So
point being, sorry, with that last line, and then I'll shut up, is the line from Godfather is not personal, it's strictly business. Imagine and remember all the things in Godfather that are done because it's strictly business and how horrific they are. That to me brings our antagonists as a crime family and people from a crime family up to a new level that, okay, yeah, it's not apocalyptic in Manhattan sinking to the sea, but it could be personally.
Mm. I was going to say, Boom Studios. Apparently, The Godfather Chronicles is something that Google pulled up here for me. Boom Studios, I know them definitely as a comic book publishing company. So if they put it out there back in 2008, I don't know what it's about, but there you go.
I would say this does really get your appetite for who is actually behind this. I mean, it does. This issue does not discuss who was the financial benefactor for the Gargoyle task force, and you wonder. You know that Thylaug has a fortune. They mentioned it in the previous 3 issues. Thylaug, he stole this massive amount of money from Xanatos that Xanatos thought he was basically paying like a ransom for. And he has very smartly embezzled it and invested it. So he has amassed a giant fortune. You also know, fun little side note, hoping Demona shows up here in the next few issues. Because Demona also had a fortune amassed.
Quick question, business or personal?
Demona had amassed a giant fortune over the millennia that she had been alive. I mean, I think there was someone made a joke. It's like, if you're alive for 1,000 years and you're still living paycheck to paycheck, you have failed.
Oh,
so yeah, Demona also has a fortune, a lot of which she combined with Thylaug for that Nightstone Unlimited, but she still has more than enough resources at her disposal. So it's like, so did one of those two invest with the Gargoyle task force? You want to know, it's like there is a central linchpin here who's kidnapped the 2 teenagers, the children of the criminal underworld, who is trying to get these 2 factions to fight, who had Goliath taken in by the police. It's like, we all know there's someone at the top of the pyramid. We want to know who's at the top of the pyramid, and our minds are racing with all of the characters we have known in the series going, could it be them? Could it be them? Could it be them? And it gets you excited.
Looking at it as a mystery, Demona is probably the best choice. And as such, and sorry, Jesse, this is for you since you haven't seen a lot of the episodes. Demona gets to a point where she's like, fuck humanity. They all need to die. Screw all of them. And again, setting humanity against each other in a huge crime war and having Goliath, the one person that she knows could turn the tide of this, locked up. That, if they did that, I'd be very happy, because that would be a character arc of like, damn, you went hardcore villain. You being really pissed off and saying humanity sucks, they took out, most of our clan. Okay, I can get that. But you going this far, I'm going to salute you. I'm going to go then immediately help Goliath kick your ass, but I'm going to salute you first.
Demona really is one of the absolute greatest villains to come out of an animated TV series of all time, in my opinion. She is so consumed by her hatred of humanity. She has been betrayed by humans time and time again, and she is unwilling to move on from it. She has rebuilt herself out of her hatred. It's very similar to Magneto in a way. Magneto's hatred of humanity, Damona's hatred of humanity. And you see so much. There is seriously, Jesse, you really do need to go watch the series on Disney Plus. They go into how Damona survived for 1,000 years. She wasn't under the stone sleep spell like the others. She survived.
Oh, wow.
Through another means.
Okay.
And you learn how she did it. Hint, magic was involved. But you see her develop, and you start to see why she is so hateful of humanity. And while you want to tell her, get over it, let go, you can't exist like this. You've pushed away everyone. You've pushed away your former mate Goliath. You've pushed away your daughter Angela. Your last connection to your former life, and
it's a Deuteronomy.
She can't. She cannot let go.
The title of what is the middle ground between a protagonist and an antagonist.
Say it one more time.
Deuterogonist.
That's Che in the background, isn't it?
No, that's my
That's the phone.
Because I knew how I needed to say it, but I didn't want to keep going.
Okay, I am sorry, but your phone sounds like your pseudo girlfriend.
All right, so let me roll that right into my final question, and then I'll turn you guys loose for your final thoughts. But Alexis is humanity aware of the Gargoyles up to this point at all?
Again, that's part of where the line with the third season was drawn, because in the third season, the public is made aware. They've cut that. So now they're more of a giant conspiracy theory. They have footage of it, but and now they've captured Goliath, but I don't think they really know what the Gargoyles are, what they do, what they're capable of doing. And I mean, again, we have a freaking trial coming up where Gargoyle or with Goliath, who loves reading Dostoevsky and classic literature. It's established if he's not out on patrol, he's holed up in the library reading. He is a brilliant mind, a brilliant strategist. Thank you. I was trying to find another word for that. And it's like they're going to, it's like, and yeah, it's like, oh, we're going to have a trial to see if he's, competent to stand trial. And it's like, he's more competent than you, asshats.
Sentient to stand trial.
Right. At first, when we were getting into this, I was like, oh, they're going to put him on trial for something. And then, yeah, we've got to first figure out if he's an actual being, which
humanity's first thought would be he's a robot.
Right. Right.
Occam's razor. Okay, so it moves, and so it has to, is it sentient? And sorry, not to go back to Star Trek, but again, there's a whole episode where Data, who's Brent Spiner, who's also in the show, is put on trial. Is he sentient enough to stand trial? Sorry, Jesse, please continue.
Yeah, you have the line from D.A. Yale. She goes, because they say, well, he's talking, and she goes, parrots can talk.
Oh boy, does she get under your skin?
Mm-hmm.
And I will tell you that it doesn't stop. Just be ready when we get in the next volume. She's earning her pay. Yeah, Dorian, I mean, what do you think here? We're going to expose the Gargoyles are now a public thing. We're having news conferences. They have a gargoyle that is in custody and going to stand trial to figure out if he's sentient or not. What are your thoughts on this turn of events?
I'm excited for it because it seems like many times when a creator of an animated show gets popularity and the show becomes popular, even if it's popular in its short run or it lasts for 1 million years. Cough, cough, SpongeBob. Cough, cough, The Simpsons. Sorry, there was something stuck in my throat.
Yeah, it's called mediocrity.
There doesn't seem to... Sorry, what did you say, Alexis?
I said, yeah, it's called mediocrity.
Well, fair. But
I wasn't calling you mediocre. I was calling the later seasons mediocre.
Okay, I was just gonna take the bullet too, so I was fine.
Dorian, my love, when I want to insult you,
I'll do it.
I will make it much more lethal. Okay,
Your name will be mentioned.
yeah, it's like if I want you to crash and burn, I will make sure you crash and burn. I won't just make an offhanded comment. Okay,
so noted.
you know when I'm evil.
I have seen my own end, and this is. But anyways, no, I like the fact when creators of stories bring something to what can be a conclusion without just a slam the door in the face situation of like, and everybody died, go home, you know. So I'm very interested to see where they take this, because this to me, because before this review, after I'd read Here in Manhattan, I did go back and I watched all the episodes that I had missed that had not been on, you know, the DVD burning and such that I'd gotten, and because I wanted to be caught up as much as I could. And I actually was lucky enough, as busy as I was, to get through everything. This has been a long time coming. Again, we talked about Demona and the conversations that her and Goliath have had, like, you know, humanity is this, humanity is that, blah, blah, blah. This seems, and again, maybe this is just what I got from the art that they had of Goliath in the cell, of almost an old warrior going, it's enough. It's enough. We have done this for too long. It's enough. I want them to know, let them make their decision. You know, if their decision is to destroy me, fine. I have fought for all these many years. I have lost so much. I have continued to fight despite that. But you know what? Let them decide. It is their world. And there was a beauty to that. The without making the archetypical, you know, old warrior who's just going to give up. This was, I'm still going to fight, but rules are rules.
Right.
And again, to me, my final thought on that was that, especially since he's in a romantic relationship with an officer of the law, it's like, if I profess to love her, I have to follow the rules that guides her heart and her soul. They have asked me to stand down. I am caught in a net. I will stand down.
I think there's also a lot to the fact that Goliath knows that if he escapes, if he has Brooklyn and Coldfire break him out and he takes off, it will be war on his kind. They will essentially say, it's like they refused to stay in trial. They just broke out. It's like, no, he knows that if he leaves, it's just going to be open season on the rest of the clan.
And I would agree if it wasn't for Goliath, I would agree entirely if it wasn't for the character that we've seen of Goliath so far. And that's where my points come from, is that this isn't just avoiding war. This is, it's your world, it's your rules. And that's the reason I brought that forward, is that in many cases, in one night, with the gargoyles we have, we could wipe out and enslave humanity. And I'm using we as like, if we were part of them, we had wings and we could do all this fun crap. To me, Goliath's character has always been more about his heart and his soul and his beliefs. And I believe that is why he has stood down, even though, again, he wouldn't even need necessarily them to break him out. He could probably break the wall down himself. There's more to his decision than just brute strength.
Right.
So that is the end of my thoughts. Sorry, that kind of went on for a little bit, so I apologize.
You're fine. All right. Well, that's all I had. That was all my questions. So I'll let you, Alexis, go first. Final thoughts on the book.
Loved the book. I am so pleased that Greg Weisman was able to come back and give the fans truly what they wanted. Again, I always get nervous when someone who is either new or someone who may not have been that involved with the original story arc says, okay, we're going to continue it, because then again you get very Star Wars extended universe. It's going, wait a minute, I don't really know about this.
Mm-hmm.
I love it when the original creator comes back and he goes, I know what this means to you, and I know what it will mean if I totally fuck this up. So I love that he gave us something that we love, and I feel that it is a great continuation of the characters, of their evolution. I'm so happy to see, where all of these characters that I grew up loving, where they are. Hell, I'm just going to admit it. I'm excited that freaking, Broadway and Angela are essentially engaged, because we have a scene with them talking about Coldfire, and she's going to officiate their commitment ceremony, which I guess is a gargoyle wedding. And again, it's just like I love that, because there was a freaking episode of the original TV series where the three, this was before Brooklyn met Katana, obviously, where Brooklyn, Lexington, and Broadway were hitting on Angela nonstop, because she was the first female gargoyle, aside from Demona, that they had seen in 1,000 years. And it's driving her insane. And they keep calling her Angie, and it's driving her. And they finally go into battle, and she just lays down the law, and she's like, enough, and stop calling me Angie. But they established that she did.
Don't call me Junior. Look what you did. I can't believe what you did.
That she does end up choosing Broadway, and I love seeing them together. It's so cute. I love that I've seen these characters grow and fall in love with things like that. That's how much the story means to me.
Yeah. Again, it is a testament to comic books being able to continue something where you're just not going to be able to find that slot on television, or you're going to be able to find that network to actually put something on TV. Although there seems to be a little bit more freedom nowadays of what they can. Maybe it's just a matter of there's just not enough demand in their eyes, because I know there are plenty of fans of this show. I'll give my final notes, and I'll throw it to you here in a second, Dorian. But as far as this book, I'm coming into this completely fresh, have no clue what happened before. I've never read any of the comics before. I just knew there was a series, and I was really intimidated at first, because I was like, there's so much, as the kids say, lore going into this, and the stuff that happened way before that I don't know anything about. Just show me the main characters, let me get into this. And then by the end of issue 1, I felt perfectly fine. I felt welcomed into the Gargoyles universe, and I was able to follow the story just as well. The good thing is that, doing a comic book podcast, I did some due diligence and research, and also learned a lot over the past few weeks too. So I could be a little more familiar as to why so-and-so is her brother looks like a panther, like Derek's, I don't understand what happened here. Somebody tell me, because they're not doing that in this comic. But the thing is, you don't need to know that. You just need to know. I mean, because they do mention, I think, off on the side, in a side note, but it's not like they spend a whole page and a half explaining the whole history of what happened with Derek. But that's just a small example of okay, there is a lot that goes into each one of these characters, and I'm not overburdened with needing to understand that in order to enjoy this story. The other thing is that this is a good story. I mean, this is a good story. Sometimes you bring these properties back and you're struggling. Like, I can tell you, there's some Ghostbusters comics that I've read that I'm just like, man, I don't know. You probably should have stopped while you were ahead. This doesn't need to actually be out there. Me and Ronnie,
it's like every now and then, all of a sudden, it goes into Dial of Destiny territory.
Right. I mean, you had a premise. I understand you wanted to execute it. Well, the good thing is comics are there for you to do that. You've got your story out there. You've told the story, whether it was a good one or not. You had your shot. This is a good story. I do like what they're doing with these characters and what's upcoming. And, I knew that this is a big deal, that the Gargoyles have been trying to at least they're trying to protect humanity, but remain on the outskirts and not be noticed. And now that is just thrown out the window. People know you're there. So I know it's a big change. So I'm excited to see what's coming up next in the next 6 issues. So Dorian, you have the floor, man.
I'm gonna make this very quick. If you got brought to this podcast first of all, welcome. As somebody who's the first timer as well, it's been a lot of fun, and I hope you as a listener had as much fun. But if you got brought here by somebody who knew Gargoyles, and much like Alexis, sorry, other way around, pointing the wrong way for those of you listening to the podcast, going, why is he pausing?
Gotta eventually see, even I do it. So I gotta remember.
And you haven't seen Gargoyles, first and foremost, and again, they are not, and I underline, they are not paying us to say this. Get Disney Plus. Go watch Gargoyles, the first 2 seasons. Actually, watch all 3 seasons. A lot of people worked really hard on them, and they did a fantastic job. Watch those episodes, and again, get this comic book. Again, Gargoyles here in Manhattan. Get the comic book, read it. It's fantastic. And if you're here as a Gargoyles fan and you didn't like it, remember one thing. Go write your own. Because nobody's going to write the Gargoyle story that you want to see better than you. So go out there and get that and make it happen. And overall, to the Gargoyles fans who were like me, were like, hey, we kind of came in late to the game, but we love it still to this day. I don't even need to say anything. You guys have probably already read this comic book, and if you haven't, I refer to my earlier statement. Go get it and read it. It's fantastic. And again, come back to source material. We'll be covering eventually the next half of it.
Amen. Yeah, I'm sure that the next, because they've hit issue 12 already, I'm pretty sure. So the next trade's got to be dropping, I would imagine, before the end of the year. So just keep your ears out on that. That'll certainly pop up, I'm sure, and we'll be promoting it. So speaking of promotion, now that we have talked about the comic, I know where to throw my promos. But first, Dorian's going to throw some promos here. What's going on? You said you had something, somebody you knew you wanted to show a trailer for something?
Well, first of all, for those of you watching the video of this, you can see literally right down here. There we go.
Down is down for sure.
I'm not used to being in front of the camera somewhere, so behind it, and I'm telling the actor, point that way. But at Frankie Pictures, PHRIKE Pictures on Instagram, on Facebook. If it needs to be photographed, it needs to be filmed. If it needs to be created, period, hit us up. We want to help make your vision a possibility. But I do have a trailer for those of you watching the video of this that is for Kaizen KC, which is the forefront of not only anime events, but now a new set of events, which is what this following trailer is all about. So hope you watch it. Hope you enjoy it.
Okay. Is that big enough for you, Dorian?
It looks good to me.
Okay.
Woo.
Thank you,
like
Jess.
a rocking good time there, man. What can we expect at that event? What was it again that's going to be happening?
It's a cyberpunk dance party. And first of all, thank you, Jesse, for allowing that to play on your podcast. And thank you, Alexis, for being able to set it up that way. It's a cyberpunk dark synth dance party. So if you're into that, that's what we're doing. And we try to make every one of our promos seem a little more cinematic. I know my boss every now and again probably rubs his head and goes, "Why did I hire a filmmaker?" A movie, like not just a filmmaker, but a movie maker to make my commercials. What the fuck was I thinking?
I just imagine someone just cornering you, Dorian, just going, "For the love of God, tone it down."
No. That one I was given specific orders.
Oh, that one I have no doubt. That one I trust me. I know enough about the cyberpunk community, and it's like, no, you did exactly what they wanted there.
But yeah, if you're in the Kansas City area, or in the surrounding metro, it's at Club Sparks, which is very easily looked up on whatever GPS you have. It's $10 entry, 21 and plus, over. Sorry, that was. Let me try that again. This is why I don't act. 21 plus can get in. Please have your ID. My boss is going to watch this and go, "What? No, you are never allowed to push anything other than what you do.
Just play the trailer. Shut up, man."
Yes. Do your work, bitch, and then shut up.
I'm just now imagining a cyberpunk party with a bunch of 10-year-olds.
Okay, Dorian said on source material. Not bad. But yeah, more there will be more commercials coming up. So if you're listening to this, Kaizen KC, that is take two. KAIZIEN KC on Facebook, Instagram. More things pop up all the time. If you're listening to this in another state, we'd love it if you drove down, but we don't necessarily, expect you to.
Come join the fun. What do you got going on yourself? I mean, you got any projects you're into right now?
We finished a music video for a musical group called the Ryan Express. And that is, again, the Ryan, as in the name, Express, which you can find on Spotify and YouTube. We'll be finishing up one later this next week for Drew 6. Again, that is also the name Drew 6 on the number 6.
Is that DREW or DRU?
DREW.
Thank you.
And then the letter 6. Because I know this is audio. That's the only reason I'm going over this again. And we've got a personal project that's working on called Trash Head. So that should be very interesting. The entire story is done in rhyme. Ooh. So we're very excited about that. The production crew has been working on the designs and such. So that's what I've been up to. And honestly, just filming a whole bunch of bands. And if I was going to name every single one of them, we'd be here probably another hour. So I'm going to shut up.
Wow. But
you're all awesome. And I'm talking about you.
All right, man. Well, I appreciate you coming on here, and can't wait to have you back on. So it was a lot of fun, dude. Glad to have your insight and your enthusiasm as well. So, all right, Alexis, time to pay the bills.
Very much so. But first, I should say that if this is coming out the night I believe it's coming out on audio only, we will also be doing our Damn You Hollywood for Inside Out 2. That's going to be myself, Mark Radulich, Robert Winfrey, and my co-conspirator in animation, Zachary Strobel, who I just had on to talk about the Garfield movie. So other than that, we have a couple more TV Party Tonights coming up pretty soon because we have some really great TV shows that are starting their next seasons. We got House of the Dragon starting soon, season 2. Can't wait to go back to talking about dragon names.
Oh boy.
Yeah, another hour is discussing, did the name Sheep Stealer come before or after? We also have The Boys season 4. Looking forward to talking about that. We're also doing another Damn You Hollywood, or Zachary and I will be doing another Damn You Hollywoods before too long for The Wild Robot. That's going to be coming out before too long. Very excited. That looks like an absolutely beautiful animated film. So we should have a lot of fun discussing that. And yeah, I know there's a handful of other source materials, Jesse, that you and I have been talking about. How the serial one, to you. We have the Spider-Punk one that we've wanted to do for ages. I want to talk about Captain Anarchy.
Oh man, lots of fun.
Oh,
My
absolutely.
goodness.
Well, we got all that. As far as the plugs that actually do pay the bills, let me go ahead and bring in my screen. Is that the right one? Yeah, good enough. And that is Honeysuckle Rose Creations, where fashion meets fandom at the intersection of geek and chic, makers of awesome handmade geek-themed jewelry, including, you can see it there, our Gargoyles-inspired charm.
Look at that. Wow.
This is the problem, unfortunately, is that I can share a screen, but I can only do one screen at a
One
time.
window, right? Drives me nuts.
I tried to set it up so it's like, okay, so there's the Gargoyle screen, there's Dorian's trailer and everything. It's like, no, I can only have them one at a time. Like, okay, I'm just gonna have to jump back and forth. But yes, this is
that annoying audience, old people. Well, I mean, what are we gonna do?
But yeah, this is our Gargoyles charm bracelets, one of my favorites I've ever created. It's also one of our biggest sellers. You have the entire Manhattan clan plus Demona, plus a nice little silhouette of Wyvern Castle, as it would undoubtedly be seen on top of Xanatos Tower. So again, that is on both our Etsy store and our Handmade at Amazon store. If that's not your thing, we got tons of other fun geek-themed jewelry. We're getting ready here. We're going to be heading. We're still on waiting to hear back if we landed our table for the Greater Austin Comic-Con. Really hoping they approve us because we've gone there for several years and it's one of my favorite shows. Austin is such a great town. I love going down there. But we will definitely be heading out in August to the Colorado Springs Comic-Con. Cannot wait. Love doing that show. We always have a blast. And I love Colorado Springs. Great town. We'll be heading after that to the Cincinnati Comic Expo. And then back here in our hometown of Kansas City, we have Planet Anime that will be happening later this fall. I think they've announced a handful of the voice actors from various animes who are coming, but I need to double check that list. We'll have more guests as they announce it. Okay. And as always, you can follow us on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. I will never call it X, and TikTok. Although, admittedly, TikTok is now mostly videos of my dogs because I consider them my office staff, and they need to help pay the bills.
Know what this is? Know what this is?
A slightly burnt face.
It's a shocked face.
Absolutely. Hey,
he has no reason to be shocked. You know, Jesse, serious question. You know what he calls my dogs? I know. Jesse, you know what he calls my dogs?
Tell me.
What do you call them, Dorian?
I call them my producer and my executive producer. One of them's a little younger and can do more leg work. The other one's a little older, so he would want to sit back and just to do the paperwork and be like, "I'm awesome." Big cigar.
Well, he's also a corgi, so he can't really do a lot of leg work because he got little stubby legs.
He's just little they're little stubs. My goodness.
Yeah, no, seriously. First time Dorian ever came over, Eddie just fell in love with him, and he started joking about how Eddie will be credited as an executive producer in his film.
Perfect.
All right. Jesse, do you want to say the closer or do you want me to take us out?
Let me plug a couple things and I will, I'll definitely tell them.
Well, I wasn't trying to cut.
You keep trying to cut people off from their plugs.
No, I was asking before he started the plugs. I wanted to know what
she's getting prepared. Prepared is what she's doing.
I'm sorry. I need to get prepared.
Hit that in button.
Now listen, folks, you're listening to this in audio form. You're probably on the Source Material Comics feed. We got 3 shows right now that are primarily featured on the Source Material Comics feed. Number 1, Source Material Comics podcast. You're listening to it right now. You can go back in the archive. We've got over 300 episodes of this here podcast itself. We talk about comic book stories from any era. So there's probably, if it's something big that has happened in the comic book realm, we've probably covered it. So that being said, we also have the Unspoken Issues podcast where we discuss 90s comics, and that's kind of strictly all we stick to is comics that happened in the 90s. We're talking Image, Marvel, DC, just about any publisher you can think of, and publishers you probably haven't thought of because they got buried when the crash happened. So yes, there's that as well. And then we have Snap Material where myself and Evan Bevins get together and talk about Marvel Snap, that mobile card game. It's taken the world by storm, and we're having a good time talking about that. I think this week we just dropped 4 episodes in a row. We're probably on episode 3. Tomorrow's episode 4. But anyway, Evan and I have a good time talking about previous season, upcoming season, some of the stuff we've seen during the seasons. Lots of cards. We're having a blast. Recently, yesterday, released myself and Mark Radlich on source material talking about and finishing up our 3rd part of the Lois Lane series that we discussed. It was a 12-issue series by Greg Rucka, and it was pretty good. It was a lot about journalism and seeking the truth, and then there was definitely some multiverse crap thrown in there because DC said, "Hey, Greg Rucka, remember we had a crisis one time. We got to talk about it." So that happened. Well, at least once. At least once. And then upcoming on Unspoken Issues, you can hear me, Dean, and Derry discussing the Punisher Summer Special. The Punisher had a lot of specials in the 90s, celebrating holidays of all things. And one of them is the Summer Special, where I think we had 4 stories. I'm pretty sure it was 4 stories, 3 of which were really great, and one of which was extremely Islamophobic because the war was going on at the time. It was bad. And we had a discussion about that. And we fired with all barrels on that thing. So anyway,
speaking of Islamophobic, did you see the trailer for the Frank Miller documentary?
Oh no, I'm sure that there is lots of discussion about that.
Yeah, I saw the trailer. I'm like, I'm really hoping they cut off before they get to him talking about holy terror.
I don't know what tone that's going to be in, but if it's in an appreciative tone of Frank Miller, it's going to be spun differently, and that's not going to look good at all.
I think it's more talking about his work in the 80s and early 90s before something happened.
There was a cliff, and
some synapses in the brain suddenly fired in the wrong direction.
This Jesse is where when she starts talking about that, you got to that whole we're experiencing technical difficulties.
Yeah. Exactly. But there it is, folks. That's all. That's everything that's out there. We appreciate you joining us there to listen to us talk about gargoyles, and we really hope that you come back and listen to us talk about them again. So with that being said, we're out of here. That's Dorian. Over there is Alexis. I'm Jesse Starcher. Have a good one. Bye-bye.
Be seeing you.